So today I wanted to do something a little different with this chapter review. You may have noticed I didn't put a chapter review out for the last one as well because I was very much fixated on one specific aspect, which is Kaido's backstory and King's backstory getting developed. Now, I waited until this chapter came out to see if that would be further developed upon, so maybe I could do a full video talking about Kaido's backstory and his release into JOYBOY, which I'm really glad was brought up in this chapter. But honestly, this chapter was more of a, summary showing where everyone else in Onigashima is and what they're doing at the moment. Like, we see Apu and Drake, Yamato, Kinemon and Kiku, Usopp, a lot of people in this chapter. But we don't really get any crazy plot developments. Obviously, we see that Zoro beat King, which was an amazing fight, which I would love to talk about as well. We got King's backstory, we got King himself, and one of the finest dudes in One Piece, gotta say. And honestly, this chapter itself, not that much. There's a really great Usopp moment, I'm not gonna lie. So very, very glad to see Usopp kind of step up and be more resilient of a hero. And Izo actually saying God Usopp was pretty awesome, because Izo, obviously being an important Whitebeard pirate, it's pretty cool seeing Usopp get that respect he deserves. Very, very awesome. But what I really wanted to talk about is the connection between Luffy and Kaido that is being built up in these past two chapters. Before I get into that though, if you enjoy any One Piece content and want to hear more, consider my opinion somewhat interesting, I appreciate you checking out the channel. Anyway, let's get right into it. Now, personally, I really like what Oda is doing with Luffy versus Kaido. It's obviously been built up ever since the start of Wano, with him as this impenetrable, unstoppable force versus Luffy's immovable object. And I think that dynamic is really great, because obviously Luffy is going to beat Kaido somehow. But seeing him struggle and grow to reach that level that Kaido's at has been really cool, and it's been a slow burn, but it feels so earned where we're at right now. I know that many people do consider Luffy's development in Wano a bit forced in order to speed up the story, but obviously Luffy's gonna have to get to this point eventually, and I think that his awakening in Whole Cake with advanced observation haki, and with this arc having advanced armament and advanced conquerors finally being shown, I think this is just a perfect continuation as to what Whole Cake has offered, and it's a good ending to the Four Emperors saga of One Piece. The Four Emperors have been hyped up ever since the post Enies Lobby, so we've known about them for quite a long time, and seeing that Luffy is now not only in the newspaper depicted on a similar level to them by Big News Morgans, but literally being shown on a power level similar to them, with Luffy and Kaido splitting the sky when they clashed against each other, it's clear to see that Oda is depicting Luffy as a Yonko level character. And I don't like saying Yonko level, Admiral level, whatever, but that's literally what Oda is trying to depict, so I'm just going to call it that. Now, seeing how much Luffy has grown has been absolutely fantastic, but seeing how much we're learning about Kaido in comparison to Luffy has had me even more interested, and I wanted to talk about this specifically in relation to Zoro versus King. Now, in the last chapter, we saw how Kaido met King, which was he saved King from Punk Hazard. That's obviously how Momonosuke got a Kaido Devil Fruit. Kaido frees King from his imprisonment, similarly to how Luffy freed Zoro from his imprisonment, and we get to see that both King and Zoro are very affirmative that their captains respectively will be the Pirate King, and especially that they're never going to lose. I thought that was really cool, not gonna lie. And we also see that King, for some reason, believes that Kaido is going to be JOYBOY, and while Zoro doesn't believe Luffy is going to be JOYBOY, because I assume Zoro doesn't even have that comparison in his mind, we see that, Oda is talking to us, the readers. A lot of people think that Luffy is some strong relation to JOYBOY, because of Kaido even saying, seems like you couldn't be JOYBOY. A lot of JOYBOY-esque characteristics being seen in Roger as well, and Luffy and Roger obviously being very similar characters. I think that this idea of Luffy and Kaido being very similar in their origins is really fascinating. And honestly, the more I think about it, it seems as though that Luffy and Kaido being introduced to this pirate life at such a young age, with Luffy being literally a little kid at the start of the story and Kaido being an apprentice, will also come into play somehow. We got callbacks during the Jinbei Who's Who fight, that Luffy obviously got his fruit from Shanks stealing it from the world government. So I feel like we might not only get some information on Luffy's youth, but obviously something I'm really hoping for is a Kaido flashback. Before I get too in tune with the idea of speculating on what Kaido's flashback is going to be and all that stuff, I just want to talk about the 2 chapters and what I really liked about them. For chapter 1035, I really enjoyed the Zoro and King fight. I really like Sanji's fight and Zoro's fight a ton in this arc, and I'm really happy with how they both had a lot of growth for the characters. It reminded me a lot of Enies Lobby, which I mentioned that earlier because I feel as though it's kind of a good bookend. We meet the 4 emperors after a huge power up for the crew, and we get a huge power up of the crew when fighting the emperors. I think it's pretty cool. And besides that, in this chapter, there was a really good Usopp moment as well, which I liked quite a bit. Now, I wasn't a huge fan, obviously, of Kinemon and Kiku being alive, because it's just Oda things, you know? But honestly, I really liked what Usopp was saying. He was basically completely baffled by the idea that the samurai are just accepting their deaths as though it's nothing, when obviously it's them dying. And seeing Usopp really be brave and heroic trying to defend them and continue to inspire them to keep living. And Izo even coming in to say, you know what, very commendable God Usopp. And seeing Usopp basically get the credit he deserves, I really like that. And we get to see a bunch of other sort of, you know, synopsis of what's going on with everyone, like Pooh, Drake, Yamato, even Raizo, which I don't know how that's still going on, but it'll be important, I swear. Honestly, I thought that this chapter was just mostly summary, like I've been saying, but the stuff with King and Kaido and that Usopp scene as well really carried, and I'm unsure what this is going to lead into. I assume we're going to see Kid-in-Law and Big Mom, because, you know, I feel as though them taking her down is an obvious next step, because it's not Luffy versus Kaido, but it's still a really huge fight that I feel should have been after Zoro and Sanji's fights, because Big Mom is a much bigger force in this battle compared to King and Queen. So I'm very excited to see what happens next. If it's a flashback, awesome, very excited, but I feel as though Big Mom is a very obvious next candidate. Overall, I'm really excited to see what Oda's going to do with One Piece next year, and I'm just really happy to have been a present fan of One Piece this year, because honestly I feel like there's been a lot of really great moments. We've seen a bunch of fights between the crew, giving a lot of them really good character motivation and power-ups. Like specifically, one I really loved was the Robin fight, obviously, because my girl Robin, you know, her and fights, they don't really happen ever. So her getting one and it being a huge character moment and power up and showing Saul and Olvia, that was fantastic. I really loved that chapter. But personally, I still gotta say my favorite moment, being a current One Piece fan in the community, was the Jinbei Who's Who fight, where Who's Who revealed the big lore bomb about Nika and Luffy's fruit, and it was awesome. That was such a great month to be a One Piece fan, because so many people were theorizing and giving all these fun ideas, and honestly, I just really loved it, and talking to so many people about it was just a blast. So I'm curious, what was your favorite One Piece moment of the year? Is it Zoro's fight, Sanji's fight? Probably the Sun God Nika stuff, because that was pretty awesome. Let me know below, because I'm genuinely really interested. And I'm really excited to see where Oda takes One Piece next year, because Wano is most likely ending next year. I'm pretty certain he said that in his Jump Festa sort of message, and seeing One Piece film Red next year, and just a bunch of cool stuff. So very, very excited. And that's it for me. These 2 chapters were pretty cool, and I'm excited to see what happens next year. So hopefully you all enjoyed the video. If you did, consider supporting the channel, and as always, have a good one.